My name is Ralph Green. I'm going to try to reenact not Jonathan Edwards, I just did that this last Sunday. Patrick Henry here tonight. I could do Jonathan Edwards, but I think you'd rather hear Patrick Henry this evening. Patrick Henry is a hero of mine, and I'm sure he is of many of you who are members of the Tea Party, as well he should be. The Second Virginia Convention met in Richmond in March of 1775, instead of meeting in the Capitol in Williamsburg. This was done to avoid the interference from Lieutenant Governor Dunmore and his Royal Marines. Henry presented a proposal to organize a voluntary company of cavalry or infantry in every Virginia county and to put Virginia in a posture of defense. Henry's opponents urged caution and patience until the Crown replied to the Congress's latest petition for reconciliation. We're going to let those of you who are in this particular area here represent those men that objected to Mr. Henry's ideas. No offense, please, okay? So, by custom, he addressed the President of the House, which in this case will be Sir Kurt over here, and he refers to him several times in the speech as Sir. Henry's first biographer, William Wirt, was an assistant federal prosecutor in Aaron Burr's trial for treason at Richmond in 1807. Later, he became the Attorney General of the United States. Mr. Wirt began collecting materials for writing on the life of Patrick Henry as well as his speech 9 years actually after Henry's death. From the recollections of men like Thomas Jefferson, Mr. Wirt reconstructed an account of Henry's life and presented the remarks that he had given in the speech. No one recorded what he said, but checking out people who were there, he reconstructed that speech. It took place in St. John's Church in Richmond, Virginia, March the 23rd, 1775. March the 23rd is the date that Obamacare was written into law this year. Okay. It is obvious from the speech that Henry gave that his mind was saturated with Scripture. He said the Bible is worth all the other books which have ever been written. In the speech, there are various phrases that you'll notice that come directly from the Scriptures. He said on another occasion, I have now disposed of all my property to my family. There is one thing more I wish I could give them, and that is the Christian religion. On another occasion, he said, this is all the inheritance I give to my dear family, the religion of Christ. Will give them one which will make them rich indeed. If they had that, and I had not given them 1 shilling, they would be rich. And if they had not that, and I had given them all the world, they would be poor. Just days before the speech that he gave in Richmond, he was riding on horseback through Culpeper, and he saw a man tied to a whipping post in the courtyard. His back was bleeding. The bones of his ribs were sticking out of his back. He had been whipped like Jesus was, with a cat of 9 tails that had metal embedded in the tentacles. The crime that this man was accused of was failing to take a license to preach. He also defended 3 Baptist preachers. There's a picture of him down the hall here, about the third from the end on the right, that tells about his defending 3 Baptist preachers in Fredericksburg. And their crime, once again, was failing to take a license for preaching. He's buried, as many of you probably well know, down south of Brookdale in Red Hill on the Patrick Henry Plantation. It's a most moving experience to go there and to reflect upon what our forefathers gave us at great price. I'm not worthy to be associated with Patrick Henry, but I admire him greatly, and I will step back and assume his personality as best I can and give you the speech. Mr. President, no one thinks more highly than I do of the patriotism as well as the abilities of the very worthy gentleman who had just addressed the House. But often different men see the same subject in different lights. Therefore, I hope it will not be thought disrespectful of these gentlemen if, entertaining as I do, character or opinions of a very character to theirs. A different character is, in fact. I shall speak forth my sentiments freely and without reserve. This is no time for ceremony. The question before the House is one of awful moment to this country. For my own part, I consider it as nothing less than a question of freedom or slavery, and in proportion to the magnitude of the subject ought to be also the freedom of the debate. It is only in this way that we can expect to arrive at truth and to fulfill the great responsibility which we hold to God and to our country. Should I keep back my opinions at such a time through fear of giving offense, I should consider myself guilty of treason towards my country and an act of disloyalty toward the majesty of heaven, whom I revere above all earthly kings. Mr. President, it is natural to men to indulge in the illusions of hope. We are apt to shut our eyes against a painful truth and to listen to the sounds of danger till they transform us into beasts. Is this the part of wise men engaged in a great and arduous struggle for liberty? Are we disposed to be of the number who, having eyes, see not, and having ears, hear not the things which so nearly concern their temporal salvation? For my part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cost, I am willing to know the whole truth, to know the worst and to provide for it. I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that is the lamp of experience. I know of no other way of judging the future but by the past. And I wish to know, judging from the past, which has it been that has caused these men to justify the hopes which they have toward the British and are pleased to comfort themselves and this body of representatives? Is it that insidious smile with which our petitions have been granted, or have been received, rather? Trust it not, sir. It will prove a snare to your feet. Suffer not yourselves to be betrayed with a kiss. Ask yourselves how this gracious reception of our petition compares with the preparations of war which cover our waters and darken our land. Are fleets and armies necessary to a work of love and reconciliation? Have we shown ourselves so unwilling to be reconciled that force must be called in to win back our love? Let us not deceive ourselves, sir. These are the implements of war and subjugation, the last arguments to which kings resort. I ask, gentlemen, sir, what means this martial array if its purpose be not to force us into submission? Can you gentlemen assign any other possible motive for it? Has Great Britain any enemy in this quarter of the world to call for all this accumulation of navies and armies? No, sir. She has none. They are meant for us. They can be meant for no other. They are sent over to bind and rivet upon us those chains which the British have been so long forging. And what have we to oppose them? Shall we try argument? Sir, we have been trying that for the last 10 years. Have we anything new to offer upon the subject? Nothing. We have held the subject up in every light of which it could be held, but it has all been in vain. Shall we resort to entreaty and humble supplication? What terms shall we find which have not already been exhausted? Let us not, I beseech you, sir, deceive ourselves. Sir, we have done everything that could be done to avert the storm which is coming on. We have petitioned. We have remonstrated. We have supplicated. We have prostrated ourselves before the throne and have implored its interposition to arrest the tyrannical hands of the British military and Parliament. Our petitions have been slighted. Our entreaties have produced additional violence and insult. Our supplications have been disregarded, and we have been spurned with contempt from the very foot of the throne. In vain, after these things, may we indulge in the fond hope of peace and reconciliation. There is no longer any room for hope. If we wish to be free, if we mean to preserve inviolate those inestimable privileges for which we have been so long contending, if we mean not basely to abandon the noble struggle in which we have been so long engaged and which we have pledged ourselves never to abandon until the glorious object of our contest shall be obtained, we must fight. I repeat it, sir, we must fight. An appeal to arms and to the God of hosts is all that is left us. They tell us, sir, we are weak, unable to cope with so formidable an enemy. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be next week? Or next year? Will it be when we are totally disarmed and when a British guard shall be stationed in every one of our houses? Shall we gather strength by indecisiveness and inaction? Shall we acquire the means of effectual resistance by lying cowardly on our backs and hugging the delusive phantom of hope until our enemies shall have bound us hand and foot? Sir, we are not weak if we make a proper use of those means which the God of nature hath placed in our power. 3 millions of people armed in the holy cause of liberty, and in such a country as possess that which we are invincible by any force which our enemy can send against us. Besides, sir, we shall not fight our battles alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations and who will raise up friends to fight our battles with us. The battle, sir, is not to the strong alone. It is to the vigilant, the active, the brave. Besides, sir, we have no other choice. If we were base enough to desire it, it is now too late to retire from the contest. There is no retreat but in submission and slavery. Our chains are forged. Their clankings may be heard on the plains of Boston. The war is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat, sir, let it come. Gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The war has actually begun. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that these gentlemen wish? What would you have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death.